Okay, good afternoon. It is Tuesday, April 1 at about 12:05, and this is the House Republican Caucus. So just a few items from the leadership meeting this morning. As Representative Morrissey had mentioned today, from 4 to 6 in the cafeteria is the House Art Project. If you can go, that would be great. If you're there, stay as long or as short as needed. Tomorrow, Wednesday, at 5 p.m. is the State of the Guard, which takes the National Guard, State of the National Guard, which takes place at 5 p.m. in the House Chamber, followed by a reception in the Cedar Creek Room. So that is tomorrow, Wednesday. And Thursday at 4, just for your information, the House Rules Committee will meet to discuss an ethics panel or resolution regarding policy. As you had heard today, the education bill was sent to Ways and Means. The deadline for that to vote out of that committee is Friday, April 4th. It will head to appropriations on Tuesday. We'll notice on, so it'll head on Tuesday, April 8th. It will come back and notice on Wednesday, April 9th, and up for action next Thursday and Friday, April 10th and 11th. As you saw, since we moved Ed to Ways and Means, there is nothing on the calendar for tomorrow. I don't know what you're going to be passing out of committee today. If you're passing anything out of committee today, House Transportation will not be. So I know that probably Ways and Means as well, and probes probably as well. So not quite sure what's going on. That may notice for tomorrow for action on Thursday. So that's pretty much all I have. I don't know if anyone else has anything. Mark.
If I can just speak to the bill that came over from the Education Committee, it's in Ways and Means now. In particular, the ed financing piece of it, I've had some real concerns. I'd like to keep that education finance bill regarding the education finance proposal, the foundation formula proposal. It appears that, and again, some of this stuff has been worked on, I guess, last year. I was not on Ways and Means, but it's a real concern for me as a lister and knowledgeable with what currently goes on. There's two pieces. One bill that hasn't been incorporated yet, but I believe is creating regional assessing districts, moving away from individual towns doing the reappraisals, going to a region-wide Board of Civil Authority in a sense as well for that purpose. There would be 12 districts. There's currently 6 district advisors. They're going to call them regional district advisors now. They're going to need 6 more. I talked to an appraiser who talked about, and we haven't even considered and had gotten a joint fiscal note in regards to what this might even cost. But the individual I talked to said that for PVR to take this on, it would at least mean 82 new state employees. So it's huge in my mind. And I'm trying to get folks in to testify that can testify to that. It was asked whether a PVR had the staff to do this now, and of course it said no, but again, we haven't received a joint fiscal note. Another piece of that is in there currently under our draft 1.1, when again is, you may be starting to hear about this, but it's property tax classifications. So within all the classifications that we currently have in our grand list, they want to look at residential A classification, which would be properties over $1 million, residential B, apartment, affordable housing, commercial, resorts. The list goes on here, but again, there's going to be winners and losers. My understanding is that these rates for these classifications aren't going to be put into place right off. But my assumption is that this part of the bill is going to be included in our ed financing bill. And you may start to hear from some of your ski areas and resorts, which I just did yesterday from JP, in regards to, again, the winners and losers. The losers are going to be the ski areas. The losers are going to be the folks with $1 million homes. The winners are going to be affordable housing. And it's going to be a process that's, my understanding, going to be, these rates are eventually going to be set in statute, and they're going to be set by the legislature. So again, it's a far cry from what the governor's looking at with the overall foundation formula having one tax rate. So again, to me, a lot of this is just coming out. You may be hearing again, like I said, from some of these groups that are going to be affected by these classifications. But to me, I'm going to try to have it removed from the bill so that I can support the foundation formula. And if there's any questions, I'll try to answer them, but it's certainly concerning for me to see this being stuck into a bill.
Yeah, and I think due to the nature of this education bill that took 12 weeks to get to the finish line, to move something out of committee this past Friday, to add a whole change in how we assess properties in the education bill, I think is a lot to ask, because you're changing the way every property in the state of Vermont will now be assessed and ultimately taxed as well, because there won't be a non-homestead and a homestead tax rate as we currently know it. So I would agree with Mark that maybe it behooves us to look into it, but I don't believe it belongs in this bill, right?
Well, there's just too many unanswered questions. We had the tax department in on Friday. They had three pages of questions that we don't have answers to right now on the classification piece. So again, there's we're voting it out Friday, I believe, right, Bill? So, another concern, again, talking with actually the head of Vermont Listers and Assessors Association, and the individual that I talked to had talked about how to make this happen, you're going to have to, all towns are going to have zoning. And I currently have a number of towns that don't have zoning. So there's another thing to consider. Look at how many of your towns don't have zoning. Talk to them about, is there something that you would agree with that the state came down and said you have to have zoning? So there's a lot to it, folks. And again, we're nowhere near, and we're voted it out Friday. And like I said, I'd like to be able to vote for the foundation formula funding, but if it comes to this, I probably won't.
Marty?
On that same topic, there are a few things, Mark and I maybe disagree on that particular point, but I disagree with the classifications from the point of being in the education tax, because we're using a statewide education tax to fund education. Obviously, we all talk about education being the public good, and I don't know why one classification of property has a different responsibility for supporting education than another classification of property. And so that's the philosophical difference I have. Indeed, I don't think we're going to put numbers in there, but the whole point is, if we're using this tax base to support education, I think it ought to be either a single tax, just divide the grand list, divided by how much money we need, or, as we have now, a non-homestead and a homestead. But within that non-homestead group, I don't think second homeowners or factories or stores or houses that are worth more than $1 million are any more responsible than anybody else is in terms of supporting education. That's my concern.
And it's their way of moving it to an income tax. They would like to have property taxes or do away with property taxes and make it an income tax thing. So if they can peg out probably theoretically, a lot of those $1 million plus
We
homes
discussed that.
are from higher income people.
Would cost more.
So it's their way of.
Yeah, but that hasn't been suggested.
It hasn't
I
been
think suggested,
suggested, but
but it's
that's
not part of
what-
this proposal.
That's what they're thinking.
Sandy's got it.
Sandy,
I would just like to say that that will, if they change that to an income property or income, base their education tax on income tax or income in households, they will lose money. Because people put their property to protect it into trusts. Trusts don't have earned income, the trust has money, not the individual living in the home. So they will lose money, because if we don't base it on income, people are gonna put anybody, their asset, put it in trust. Because then you don't have to claim no earned income.
They're not giving us.
So that'll kill it, but Dorset, I mean. Yeah, we got $1 million homes, and we have people, second homeowners that pay a lot of money for taxes. On the non-homestead. They'll leave.
okay, Chris, and then Lisa.
To Representative Higley's, at this point, you know, it's a similar conversation that we had in, House Education. We've got proposals out there that have a lot of controversy in them already. And if we're really serious about doing education transformation and funding transformation, we'd be presenting clean bills without additional aspects put in. And that's, you know, we're really mucking up the waters by adding extra stuff into these bills. And that's what I want to say.
Lisa,
Is there any classification, I'm sorry, I don't remember, for agricultural enterprises?
Not suggested.
I'm sorry, what was that, Marty?
No, there's an other category. Other agricultural enterprises are not set out separately.
Okay. Understood. So do they fall in that over $1 million category, or just, there is another whole category for other?
Other. There is.
In agriculture, current use.
Mostly, yes.
Yeah, I haven't looked at the classifications that they've set out, so I have no idea what they're contemplating, but if this is a backdoor way of utilizing folks' earned income for school tax purposes, rather than just coming out and saying it's an income tax, then I'm concerned about my farmers. Because their revenue might show something very different than what they afford to pay.
Well, the other thing, as a lister, I know that this is gonna be put on the backs of the listers, and I said, well, you know, that's probably why you're trying to remove the appraisals from any of the listers' actions. But it was expressed by some folks that testified in regards to, let's say you had a garage that you ran a business out of, but yet you had an affordable housing rental unit above it. Which would the classification be? So again, there's a lot there to it. Another question was, and I actually had this asked by my JP manager. They supply a lot of so-called affordable housing for their workforce, okay? Whether it's 28 units, but I can't remember just what the number was. But is that going to be considered affordable housing? And my understanding was no. You know, I mean, that's, so again, there's a lot more to it than just setting up these classifications and having it work out the way they're thinking that it's going to work out.
okay. Any other questions on anything else? I don't, Jason Malucci, do you have anything to,
On the tax piece or the ed
yeah,
piece?
anything at tax?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're obviously waiting to see what numbers are put in. We're appreciative that Ways and Means, it seems there's broad consensus that we are going to move to a foundation formula. So we're excited about that. On the work of the Vice Chairman's committee here, I think it's safe to say the governor does not support the education reform package this year to be the creation of another unaccountable subcommittee of last year's failed study commission. I don't think Vermonters will accept that as the outcome. We're encouraged by the direction the Senate Education Committee is going. They're taking seriously the need to do governance, because as we've said, if you just do the funding side, not the governance side, you don't actually see the savings that I think Vermonters have demanded of all of us. But what's important to remember with the governance piece, it's not just creating new districts for the sake of creating new districts. It's creating districts that will help the system achieve scale, so more of the resources that Vermonters are putting into the system actually get to the students and educators in the classroom, as opposed to bureaucratic overhead. That's what we're talking about when we're trying to get to scale. So that's what, the lines themselves aren't really the issue. It's what we're trying to, it's a means to an end. What's the outcome we're trying to achieve by getting to scale? And that's being able to increase teacher salaries, ensuring that a student in Brighton has the same opportunities for electives and extracurriculars and foreign language as a student in Burlington. That's what we're trying to achieve here. And you can't do one without the other. So we do not look, and you probably all saw the governor's statement last week where he doesn't think we should adjourn until we get that work done, and he's prepared to use the tools in his toolbox. You can read into that however you want to ensure that, but we have not given up hope, because I do think, some of the work that the House Education Committee has done is in line with for what they want this subcommittee of last year's study committee to look into. It's in line with the outcomes we're trying to achieve, just not at the right pace. And I think one of the most important pieces of testimony we've heard throughout this process in House Education last week was the Secretary of State going in and saying, if you don't do lines this year, we're not going to. So it's not just a 10-month delay as the subcommittee of the study committee or do the lines. It doesn't just result in a 10-month delay. It really results in 2.5 year delay, because if we don't do the lines this session, we can't do the elections in November 26th. She said it would have to wait until November of 28, which means we don't get any of the benefits of the governance changes until FY 30. And then you don't get to scale until FY 31, 2, and 3. We don't think the system can wait that long, because it's just 4 or 5 years of the status quo, which means districts are going to be forced with ever increasing costs. And at the same time, the only choice they have is what we saw this session. That's cuts, 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 cuts. So if we don't act now, as difficult as it will be, we're setting up the system for failure. And within that 5-6 year period, we could see 10,000 fewer students in our schools. So there is an urgency to act now, and that's what we'll continue pushing for. And I know that's one of the reasons why the Republicans on the committee all voted no, because we need urgency to do, and that's what we'll push for. Again, good conversations with the Senate. I think they're there as well. So we'll see what comes back over to you all, but I still think there's some momentum here, but we have to keep a united front.
Anyone else? Okay, you can take us off, so.